welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. And I know for a fact that you know that this is a very serious topic, just not another morning, but something which is very informative, which could be a life changer. Coming back to Mr. Kishu, now the big question that I would need to ask you is the fact that if you take companies across the world today, they are doing a lot of efforts, they are putting in a lot of, let's say, cause-related activities. Why HIV in Sri Lanka? Is it because of a particular trend that you see, or is it because of the prevalence level? What would be the rationale behind it?
Few factors, Shafraz. There is no single answer or single factor that I can talk about. Few reasons. One, as I told you, the biggest asset we have is a people asset, right? So therefore, to be able to nurture that, protect it, we need to be doing the right thing. And if you look at the trends, over the past 3-4 years, trend has not been too good, right? And today it is estimated that we record one new infection a day, right? So that has reached alarming levels. Take the economic model of the country. The economic model we are depending on. We have a large tourism sector, and that's a vulnerable sector. I don't need to sort of go into details there, right? Look at the apparel sector. We are employing so many young women, and relatively, their income level is very low, which is not enough for them to be able to live the life they would like to live. And then there is a Sri Lankan expatriate population that's working elsewhere in the world, and same way there are expatriates from other countries coming and working here, right? And a few other sectors as well. And that provides the breeding ground, right? So if you really see where these people are sitting, it's within the workforce, right? So that's why the private sector, has to, take the lead, right? It's not a situation where we can say as South Africans thought many years ago, we can depend on the government to fix the issue. And I say, whatever the business you are in, HIV and AIDS should be your business as well. That's the kind of mindset one needs to have if our country is to mitigate the risk to the extent where everyone can be happy. So it's a very, very serious issue, and then there is of course a social angle to it as well, right? I mean, business organizations are making contributions in every single area, and those are areas that are relatively easier to fix. But this is an area that's too difficult to fix, especially given the cultural norms we have, cultural attitudes and beliefs we have as well. So we need to basically work against that as well. These are impediments for the private sector to be able to do the right thing. So from that perspective, it's a huge challenge for the private sector as well. So that's why private sector needs to have the right focus on it, pay the right attention to it today, and go ahead and create awareness to start with within the workforce, and then have those right policies in place within which we will make sure that infection level is reduced, and those who are infected will be employed by the private sector, so that they will not be motivated or demotivated, whichever the way you want to call it, to spread it.
Yes, true enough. And also in connection to that, doctor, I'm sure you have a lot of people who will be walking up at times, people who are very open about it to discuss. Even any doctor for that matter, there will be a discussion point. I mean, who do we see these incidents mostly? And I mean, specific to Sri Lanka, would it be the youth, or would we say youth? Yes, they're more prone to. Would it be the older people, awareness levels? What would you say?
According to the statistics, we have seen that the highest levels are in the sexually active age groups, obviously starting from about say 24 years up to about 55-59 years. That's the time where it peaks, but the unfortunate part is, as I told you, when it's transmitted from mother to child. At the moment we have 64 children in Sri Lanka who were infected due to mother to child transmission. But the sexual active population, mainly the males, have been detected, but it doesn't mean that we cannot be complacent that it has not touched
Yes.
the females. The ratio is about 1.5:1,
Yes.
but the number detected among females may be not the real picture, because
Yes.
people will not come for testing.
Yes.
Now the other factor which inhibits people to come in the open, talk about this, come for a test, is the stigma and the discrimination that is associated, because this is a sexually transmitted infection.
Does it, doctor, feed in to the protection sector as well? Because this particular stigma, this particular people being averse to being open about it, does it also feed into the protection sector for that matter, doctor?
Yes, I think so. It has a great role, stigma and discrimination, because we know that protection by condoms, it has a lot to do with preventing HIV/AIDS and other sexually transmitted infections. So anybody who really wants to use a condom,
Yes.
today in our culture, as Kishu said, talking about these matters is not
something,
easy,
yes.
and for a young man or a woman to purchase a condom is not
Yes.
that easy. And also in the sex trade,
Yeah.
you know, to negotiate for a woman to have condom plus sex is not that easy. So these are all factors which will fuel a sudden spark of new cases.
True, doctor. So Mr. Kishore, coming to you, I mean, it's a fact that, you know, as doctor also said, it's quite a widespread disease now. It's getting to its alarming point, or it's already at its alarming point. It's getting worse. If you take the European world, you've been in the US as well. I mean, the expectation for a company to be socially responsible, I mean, you can name a lot of companies that have even been willing to, sometimes being forced to do it, because it's a marketplace game.
Right.
So in Sri Lanka or the developing part of the world, whereas the society does not really expect that, what do you think has to be the role that has to be changed in the future for Asia, for that matter?
I mean, if you look at the regulations, you know, governing the private sector, this part of the world, the regulations need alignment, you know, for sure. There is a kind of, you know, right level of attention being paid, but then nothing forces the private sector to basically embrace, you know, this aspect of it and do what is right, you know, from a community, you know, standpoint. Whereas, you know, in the Western world, you know, these are things where the companies have to really comply with those regulations. The regulations are there, and any company operating in those countries have to simply comply with those, you know, regulations. So within which right things, you know, get done. But here, unfortunately, it's not there yet. But the government, the labor, you know, ministry, in the recent past, you know, has taken all the right steps, and I hope, you know, sooner than later, our country also will have those right regulations being imposed on the private sector, so that, you know, those who are not willingly, you know, taking the lead or not willingly helping this cause would be forced to
The outcome,
embracing it and basically, you know, doing the right thing. So I guess, you know, that's something that needs to happen if we are to, you know, as I said earlier, mitigate this risk and save our country from a disaster.
Yes, great. And also, doctor, I mean, it's an obvious fact that today's parents, or today's teachers for that matter, no one's going to call a son and say, okay, you know what, this is what it is. No, you might change the channel if you're really watching something to do with it. I mean, today we know for a fact that there will be mothers watching it, there will be parents watching it, there will be youngsters watching it. Anything in specific, because today an influencing or a reference group could be the mother or the father who could change this entire thing and educate their children. Any message you have for the parents out there?
Yes, I think the mothers in particular should open a discussion in a matter that is familiar to her, you know, not going into the very in-depths, but educating the adolescent to protect themselves sexually, social vices, all that. So the mother has to gain an opening, first talk about the child abuse that's going on in the country, and educate the children gradually about how to conduct themselves and be protected against diseases like HIV. Of course, talking about sexual matters is not easy, but the mother first has to be educated and she must know at what point she can get into the particular child. So it will not be possible for me to tell at this point you have to open up a discussion, but the mother has to be first educated about all these facts and then gradually build it. But of course we also must understand that the state also has a responsibility. The school education, reproductive and sexual health education is very important, and the parents sometimes object when the state tries to bring this, but today the parents must understand that the state is not going to do any harm, because these programs will be developed by experts, not by people who are unaware of facts. So the parents should also be very cooperative, and what we have heard from several people who have got sexually transmitted infections is, doctor, we didn't know about these things, we were not told, we didn't know how to conduct ourselves, we didn't know how to protect ourselves, we didn't know the dangers. So we should not wait for that, and the parents also have a role in cooperating with the government when they want to introduce this subject.
I think it's a win-win at the end of the day. So thanks a lot, Mr. Kishore, thanks a lot, Doctor. It's been a privilege to have you over here and discuss this particular topic of motion as well. So that's all we have for you today. This is something that is important, this is something that is crucial. So what you need to realize is, in life, or even for HIV for that matter, we have symptoms, so many other things. I mean, failing to plan is planning to fail. So make sure you plan things in life, whatever it is. So hence you would ensure that you are safe, the people around you are safe. That's all we have for you on Good Morning Sri Lanka today. I know for a fact that it's been very informative, but we'll be joining you right here again tomorrow morning, same time. Thank you.